Big subwoofers versus small subwoofers. Is it actually worth spending the extra money on a big subwoofer and having all that extra weight to lug around? Or is having a small subwoofer just enough? In the next couple of minutes, we're going to find this out. So a couple of reasons why you might want to pick up a big subwoofer is number one, big subwoofers do better on lower power, as you can get away with underpowering a big subwoofer because generally bigger subwoofers are going to be more sensitive, so they don't need as much power to get as loud as a smaller subwoofer. So if you can't fully power your subwoofer, then having that bigger size subwoofer will allow you to still get loud even if you're underpowering it. The next advantage big subwoofers have is their low frequency output. Small subwoofers still can get low, but the output that big subwoofers have at the lower frequencies, especially in the 20 Hz range or even under 20 Hz in the infrasonic range, big subwoofers can have a lot of output in that area, as generally bigger subwoofers will have a lower FS, so it's going to be easier to hit them lower notes. As with a small subwoofer, it can be harder to make it hit them lower notes, so bigger subwoofers are a lot easier to hit them lower notes, and they can hit them lower notes louder. The next reason why big subwoofers might be the better choice is the tactile feel that you can get from big subwoofers, as it just adds a whole nother experience to whatever you're listening to, because hearing the bass is great, but whenever you just feel the bass and you can just feel it rumbling your chair and you can feel it rumbling through the ground, that just adds a whole nother experience. And smaller subwoofers can't provide that tactile feel as much as a bigger subwoofer. So if you want to get more immersed into movies or into music, then bigger subwoofers can really just provide that tactile feel, which I think makes it a lot more engaging. The next reason why bigger subwoofers can be a better choice is that they have more headroom, as like I said earlier, they don't need as much power to get as loud as a smaller subwoofer, so that means that they don't have to move as much to get the same output. Because if you have a smaller subwoofer, and let's say you like to listen to a lot of bassy music, then you're probably going to be turning that smaller subwoofer closer to its maximum output, so that means it's going to have a lot of movement, which could mean that it's going to have more distortion, or you're just not going to have that headroom. But with a bigger subwoofer, most of the time, at least in my experience, I don't have to turn it up very loud to get some good output, and I have a lot of headroom to play around with. The next reason why a bigger subwoofer might be the better choice is because whenever someone sees that you have a big subwoofer, like a 15 or an 18, or even bigger, they're probably going to think that your subwoofer just means business, and that once they hear your sound system, they know it's going to be an experience. And in some cases, if your subwoofer is small enough, they might not even notice you have a subwoofer. So if you're trying to impress some of your friends, then having a bigger subwoofer could be better, but I wouldn't go out and buy one just for that reason, but that is something to keep in mind. I'm sure there's more reasons why bigger subwoofers can be the better buy, but I'm just gonna move on to why smaller subwoofers can be the better buy. And number one is that smaller subwoofers are just easier to move around. As with my small subwoofer, I can carry it with one hand, and it's very easy to move around, but I wouldn't even dare to try to pick up my 18-inch subwoofer with one hand. And the 18 definitely is a lot harder to move around, so if space is an issue, the smaller subwoofer definitely can be the better buy, and the smaller subwoofer is just a lot easier to move around. The next reason why smaller subwoofers might be the better buy is that it's easier to fit multiple smaller subwoofers versus multiple big subwoofers, because even if I get 4 of these Sony subwoofers, it's still going to be a lot smaller than my single 18-inch subwoofer. And the more subwoofers you can have, the better, as it provides a more flat in-room response, so the bass will sound better throughout your room. And it's a lot harder to do with bigger subwoofers, as you might just not have the space. The next reason why smaller subwoofers might be the better buy is because smaller subwoofers can have tighter bass, allowing smaller subwoofers to be more accurate and more punchy. But that's not always the case, because even bigger subwoofers can still be punchy, and they can still have tight bass, and they can even still be accurate. But generally, smaller subwoofers are going to be more tight and more punchy, so if that's what you're looking for, then smaller subwoofers might be the better buy. The next reason why smaller subwoofers might be the better buy is that smaller subwoofers are generally cheaper than bigger subwoofers. So if you're on a tight budget, then you might only be able to afford a small subwoofer. Or let's say you can only afford one big subwoofer or 2 or 3 small subwoofers. They're both going to have their pros and cons, but I'd say a lot of people would probably pick multiple small subs versus one big sub. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys like smaller subwoofers better or bigger subwoofers, and let me know what's your favorite size option. I'll let you guys know which one I like better after the demo. So I have to say, I do enjoy having bigger subwoofers as they just provide that bass I can really feel and the bass that just shakes everything in my room, but I also just really like that they don't need as much power to get loud. And I just love the low frequency output that I get from bigger subwoofers. But that's just my opinion. It looks like you guys reached the end of the video. I appreciate all y'all for watching. Hopefully you guys learned something new today, and I'll see you on the next video.